I should not have screamed in terror that fine day. Saw that purple wig and did not know what to say. It left me sort of startled and confused. Red lips and white makeup and those big old red shoes. But my daddy tore a knot in me for being so damn rude. He said, son, don't you know that clowns are people too? Clowns are people too, big red shoes. Clowns are people too, don't be rude. If you weren't a bit lucky, then this could easily be you. I met your mom when she was up on that old trapeze. What can I say but hey, I had a thing for circus freaks. I started watching Bozo and warmed to the movie It. Killer Clowns from Outer Space to me was a big hit. Some people like McDonald's because of Mayor McCheese, but Ronald is my homeboy now, and Krusty and Pinky. Clowns are people too, big red shoes. Clowns are people too, don't be rude. If you weren't a bit lucky, then this could easily be you. I met your mom when she was up on that old trapeze. What can I say but hey, I had a thing for circus freaks. Clowns are people too. Clowns are people too. Now I own some tiny horns and got me those red shoes. I don't know much, but know one thing that's true. If you don't know anything, just know that clowns are people too.
Welcome to Inside the Gamecocks, the show, part of the Chief Sports Network.
Mad Dog's upstate raised and reared up near the tater patch. He flirted with that upstate team, now bleeds garnet and black. It's been almost 2 decades since JC started Big Spur. He may live outside of Chicago, but he's all Spartanburg. It's the show, the Gamecock Show. ITG, Phil and JC, it's the show. It's fun and entertainment, but also information, things you cannot get on radio. It's the show. Gather around all you Gamecocks, it's the show. The show, the show. Let's go. JC and Mad Dog Mully on the Gamecock Show.
Oh, welcome in, everybody. It is Monday. This is Inside the Gamecocks, the show. Phil, Mad Dog, Mullinax, JC Sherbert in with you here at the lunch hour. If you missed it, JB, Mike, and Whittle had some good stuff on the morning show this morning. JC and I are going to take a pretty deep dive into a position group today, looking at the O-line, a couple other things on the docket. But, I know. I had to pull 2 different sources there just to remind myself of who all we might be talking about, because there is not one concise list right now, as there is no roster.
Yeah.
Technically.
Yeah. Oh, no. It's
yeah.
and as Jamie calls him, Coach Fink. I call him Steve Fink.
Mm-hmm.
Coach Fink does a great job. There's some of the newcomers on
like if you Google, like I had to Google Jaylen Brown for something I was doing for coffee this morning, and he's on the roster, like
Yeah,
he's
you
on
can
the
find him.
website.
Yeah,
But he's not. They're not on the roster done yet. But they probably don't know. Like, I mean, these guys now you could do double numbers. You can do switch numbers every year. Guys, they don't think there's no sanctity, there's no consistency with the numbers anymore. So they have a really tough job, I think, putting that together. But yeah, I figured we dive into the offensive line today, Phil, because we talk football on this show and other sports, but basketball, they're off this week, or at least during the week, I think, right?
Yep. They're getting the midweek break, much needed here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They probably, it's like the halfway point. So, and hadn't won a game, but we'll get into that a little later. Want to talk a little bit about baseball too today. Bruin in the Nana Sports chat box, by the way. Good afternoon, Frederick. He's in first. Kreger was in second. Bruins in, says per sources, JC and Phil released depth chart and starting lineup for O-line.
We may get close.
Perhaps.
I bet we'll hit the 2 deep, maybe not in the right order.
Yeah,
a couple of position questions too.
There's some thought to go into this beyond, hey, they need to get better, which is something I agree with. I just think it has to get better. And is that fair when they lose 3 interior starters? I think so. I mean, it's time to put together a good offensive line. It doesn't have to be special. It just needs to be not a hindrance to the offense. Yeah. And they did have a good bowl game collectively, I felt. So, but that's going to be a talking point for the whole offseason. I figured we'd dive right into it today. And it's kind of amazing that we're going to talk about the offensive line, Phil, and that we just mentioned the men's basketball team, and it was recently Groundhog Day.
Yes.
Now, look, I sometimes I don't pay attention to things, right? Sometimes I'm not like you would. I try to know things about things, right? Most things, and I do know things. I'm not just a helmet head that only knows football, and I think everybody knows that. But I don't know why this year it hit me. What is up with the alternative groundhogs? Seriously, I sent you an email.
That I know when
you pissed me off yesterday. I was like, what alternative groundhogs? What?
So I only know of one other one, right? Than the groundhog, because first off, you have to start this conversation now that there is one original groundhog, Punxsutawney Phil, up in Pennsylvania, and now I am aware of what is it? General Beauregard Lee, isn't that the one that they do down in, was it Alabama or Mississippi or somewhere down there? I
saw that one. I saw one in Florida. Illinois has one.
Oh, see,
and I'm like, where the hell are these? Is this a new thing? I mean, look, are you just going to kill off everything Generation X loves because you hate you? I mean, we're the smallest generation because that movie Groundhog Day with South Carolina native Andy McDowell,
yes,
by the way, is amazing. I mean, that's one of Bill Murray's best movies. But tiny handed. I still remember the song. Wakes up, and I'm just sitting there pissed off because I'm reading on Newsbreak app and on Google News because I like to go through the news and stuff about all these alternative groundhogs, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? Are you just going to take Punxsutawney Phil? Or does he not matter anymore? Are we mad at the little Pennsylvania town? Could we not just let them have that?
Yeah. I mean, what's wrong with, I don't know. I didn't mind the regionalized one, it's like, oh, okay, now we got a southern groundhog. Well, climate and weather's a little different down here than it is there. But now the discovery of these micro regional groundhogs. And yes, Frederick is right. There is a town that uses a possum. And I'm not sure how I feel about possum predicting the weather.
Why don't we just have a different Santa Claus?
Yeah, I mean,
everywhere.
What bona fides does the possum have over the, legendary groundhog's prognostication that we should think a possum would know any better?
I mean, some people eat possum. Do they eat groundhog? I don't know.
Are you?
What are we gonna do
hungry
next?
are you?
Change the Easter bunny? We're gonna have like the Easter hare or the Easter jackrabbit?
That's right. The Eastern swamp rabbit. I'm surprised we
Swamp
haven't
rabbit
tried that down
in
here yet.
Greenville. Oh, the
Yeah.
Greenville people, they'll cash in on that.
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah.
The Easter swamp rabbit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, come on, man. It's nothing sacred anymore.
No.
Why why can't we just believe that the groundhog can forecast the weather, even though Bruin accurately points out he's batting 110? Do we blame that on climate change, Phil? Can we throw that into the climate change debate?
Yeah, that, you know what? The groundhog being able or failing miserably at being able to predict the weather may be the strongest argument for man-made climate change that we've gotten yet.
Yeah, groundhog. I mean, can we just not have? I mean, why is it because he's not good anymore? Do we need to? I mean, why can't we just have a little man? I just don't understand the alternative groundhogs. Julie, actually, our company's in Birmingham, and says a possum named Jill at the Birmingham Zoo. And Clint has a 1980s Braves reference and says basically Punxsutawney Phil is Glenn Hubbard.
Glenn Hubbard.
Dude, by the way, I've said this before, but the 1980s Braves, they weren't going to win any modeling contest, dude. You want to talk about a bunch of hard rock Harrys from the 80s?
Ooh, yeah.
Glenn Hubbard, I don't think Rick Mailer may have been the ugliest human being I've ever seen play a professional sport. Dude, I mean, this dude, Zane Smith had his big buck teeth. Ken Obergefell had a mullet. Even Bob Horner. That was back when baseball players were just like, it didn't matter. There was no training or anything. No. Clint goes Bob Horner, Ken Obergefell, and Rick Mailer. Don't forget Zane Smith either.
Zane Smith, yes.
Yo, Zane Smith. And Rafael Ramirez was a bit gangly and weird looking. If you want to go back down to it, get right down to it. So anyway, Bruin says Punxsutawney Phil's past his prime. I just don't see the need for alternative groundhogs, and I just wanted to start with that. But Groundhog Day is a good theme when we talk about the offensive line, Phil. Good segue here.
That's right.
Because it is a situation where I think, and look, I'm going to take 2023 out of it, okay? Because every season's different. 2023, there were tangible reasons why collectively South Carolina's offensive line wasn't good. Mainly had to do with injuries and inexperience, lack of cohesion. And by the end, every one of those guys, from what I was told, and again, there's a difference between playing hurt and playing injured. They were all hurt, banged up. Maybe those guys and the running backs, by the time they played Clemson at the end of the year, probably none of them were better than 60%. Gargiulo probably shouldn't have been playing, but that dude was so tough. He played anyway, played through it. And that's not rare on the O-line. I don't think anybody on the O-line over the course of the season stays 100%, starts every game 100%. But now Julie does add that the Atlanta Braves back then were like a slow pitch softball team. Yeah, that's what they looked like collectively. And they were bad too. Yeah. When I was a kid in 1988, I watched every single game, even into football season, Phil, of the Braves. They lost 106 games. No. I think 2 or 3 years later, they're in the World Series. Imagine my surprise.
It was a very quick turnaround.
Yeah, very quick turnaround. But so I don't know. I think in 2022 and 2021, they should have been better, in all fairness. And
right.
Of course, we know what the OC situation was like there and some of the things they were asking them to do. But this past year, it wasn't like they were being asked to do anything hard. I mean, like challenging, like these big pulls and all that crap Satterfield tried to do. I don't want to get off on that subject, though. And they really didn't play as well as they should have. I'm just going to say it. Collectively, it was a hindrance more than it was a something that would not get you beat. Now, did they have some good games? Yes. I thought they pass protected very, very well in the bowl. I thought that against Texas A&M, they run blocked better than most Carolina teams I've seen in a while. But those were outliers. For the most part, South Carolina was, it was iffy if they could block. Now people will bring up the Clemson game where it looked like Lenoris was running for his life, and he was. But Clemson's idea and Oklahoma's was too, send more than they can block and that didn't backfired. And I think watching South Carolina and Sellers this past year, Phil, it's almost better to see if you can get pressure with 4 like Ole Miss could. And if you can, drop everybody. I think blitzing South Carolina moving forward is going to be ominous.
Because might be ill-advised, right?
Because he's to the point where, he's to the point where he senses it and can run out of it.
Yeah.
And all that good stuff. So, I think the bottom line is they have to get better. And it's not that I think they were better from 2023, but that's not that difficult because 2023 was an abject disaster up front on the offensive line. And 2023, really, when you dig into it, there are a lot of personnel deficiencies. And that's what happens when you have a team that isn't deep and you have injuries or people that want to sit out for whatever reason.
Yeah. I mean, you got to look at it, JC, like O-line is probably the least ideal position group to have to throw true freshmen into, right?
Oh, yeah. Besides quarterback.
Communication. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Communication and all of that's required. But that's what the Gamecocks were forced to do in 23. Now, fortunately, we all saw that Josiah Thompson, started this past season at left tackle, and that was not out of necessity. That was because he was the best one you had at that position. That's a little different. But like with Ball and Babalade the year before, those two were just thrown to the wolves because there were no adequate bodies in front of them to be able to fill those spots. Right.
It was bad. I mean, in that situation. And you bring up Josiah Thompson. I thought he was pretty good. I thought, as far as freshman offensive tackles go, he certainly wasn't on a team that was as high profile as Notre Dame ended up being, where their true freshmen started most of the year, but he started because of injuries. Josiah won the job.
Yeah.
I do think he's got to get better. I think some of the stuff that he got, I don't say got by with, but some of the times he got beat, that needs to kind of fit because you kind of grade on the curve when you're grading freshman offensive linemen. There's some things you're just going to live with. Most coaches on other teams that have scouted him and some contacts that I've talked with that, have familiarity with how other schools view Carolina's personnel, think he's special. I mean, we talked a lot about, they're coming after Sellers or they're coming after Stewart or whatever. Everybody in the country would have taken Thompson too. He's a player that is kind of a no-brainer. I mean, during recruiting, Alabama tried to flip him.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, and Saban, I believe. So that's the deal there with kind of where we're at. So moving forward, Phil. So, and Julie in the chat box says, any opinion on Atkins still being there, but not position coach? Yeah, but he's still coaching. They changed the rules. So in other words, it used to be that you had to be very careful because they close practices, guys and gals, but there's still like 80 people that are there. There's managers, there's people that run their mouth, there's leaks. And you're technically not supposed to coach if you're an analyst. Now, what is coaching? Is there proof? There's, Connor Stallions, there's all kinds of everything going on around college football, but you try not to do that. Well, they changed the rule and now you can coach it. You can also coach in games. So in other words, you can be on the sidelines on the headset. If you're you can only have so many coaches on the headset, but you could be one as an analyst. So Atkins is actually coaching some. One thing I will tell you, Sean Elliott's coaching the tight ends. He's not. A lot of people speculate that he was helping, but that's not my understanding. I think that Atkins has been here for a while. He has a track record, just like Lonnie Teasley, and before we dig into the coaching aspect of it, and I don't want to focus so much on that because all right, so if it's not better this year, then I think, barring injuries, right, Phil, barring God forbid, a terrible situation with that, I'm not sure. I think at that point you probably have to look at, all right, how are these guys being coached? What do we need to tweak there if you haven't already?
Yeah.
But there's a flip side.
The talent. I mean, the talent that you've got in that room right now is higher than it's
I've never
been
seen
in right.
South Carolina recruit like that on the offensive line
Right.
ever. And they keep coming. And it's a good year at State on the offensive line too. I mean, the numbers haven't quite been there because they only signed 3 in the 23 class. Or wait a minute, sorry. In the 3 in the 24 class and 2 in the 25. But boy, those 2 in 25. Damola from Georgia Tech that they flipped from Duluth High School. He's a tackle. And I'm not so sure Shed Surratt from Gaffney getting a tackle either. So that's 2 tackles. And before that, you brought in Pringle, Franks, and Thompson. So they're recruiting well. And I'll tell you this right now, Lonnie Teasley and his people that help him are a big part of that. Kids love Lonnie Teasley. Offensive linemen love him. He's a great recruiter. And so there's a catch-22 there, as there is with everything. And I think that before you cast stones about, coaching and developing and all that, you really we always say, Phil, offensive line takes time, right?
Right.
So you got to give him time. I do think this is an important year, though, for this group to play well. And it's not like, if we think about it, Carolina's offensive line's never played well under Lonnie Teasley. I think when Atkins had to take the medical leave of absence in 2022, and they had a bunch of veterans, guys that have been around for a while, but as long as the offense was fixed, Phil, right?
Yeah.
And you didn't have that personnel grouping confusion and all that, I thought they blocked pretty well against Tennessee and Clemson. It wasn't perfect, but those were 2 pretty good fronts.
Yeah.
And Tennessee's going to blitz the crap out of you, and so is Clemson. And it held up pretty good. Held up pretty good against Notre Dame until the second half in the bowl too. So it's not like we've never seen it, But so there's that. I do think it's a big year though, because you start, like I said, it's Groundhog Day sometimes with this position. Personnel. Let's talk about personnel. I believe that Tree Babalade, and this is based on kind of his small sample size from this past year and what I've been told. I think he's a top 2 or 3 offensive lineman on the team. And I wrote on thebigspur.com the big tree conundrum, because where do you play him? You return both tackles. He was a backup left tackle last year. Great that they got. I thought it was great. It worked out well, because when Thompson got hurt, it wasn't serious enough to have to burn his red shirt. And he's good enough. He got in there and played well, right?
Yeah.
Don't you think?
Yeah. He held his own, yeah. He looks good in the position. It looks natural to him.
Yeah. Thought he played really good at Vandy, and I thought he played great. I think I did a great game against Missouri out there at left tackle. That Carolina didn't almost lose that game because of the left tackle. I can tell you that. So I think he's one of the best ones. So what do you do? I think you got to, Phil, honestly, I think you got to cross-train him.
Yeah, I was going to say, does his skill set, his size obviously would be nice to have on the interior, but does he have the different skill set to make that switch? And has he ever played interior line before, or has he always been big enough to just, like in the high school level, somebody just throw him to the outside? He's a tackle. My
understanding is he's played from the moment he stepped foot on campus. The buzz around the program was he's eventually going to slide inside.
Okay.
This has been like something that's been talked about since he got there. I think they were somewhat surprised in 2023 when he got there and they saw how big and athletic he was and at tackle, and they needed a tackle. So he played tackle. Last year, he redshirts but you needed him at backup left tackle because who was going to play? I mean,
Right. Yeah.
so that's the thing. There is is what do you do with him? I think, frankly, you do slide him inside. I think left guard would be a massive from just a personnel standpoint, going from Bell to Tree would be a massive upgrade.
Right.
Massive. Just in terms of size, strength, athleticism, skill set, talent, a guy that can dominate, physicality. It's, Big Tree, you're talking about where's he going to get drafted? Kamar Bell's a nice college player. Nothing against Bell at all. I mean, he started all 13 games and Carolina won. So he served his purpose. When you look at it, though, there's a reason they brought in 3 interior offensive linemen. Now, there's several reasons. The first reason was, and Shane Beamer, when he was on Phil with JB, mentioned this about the numbers. You want to carry 15 to 17.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so, like I said, they only signed 5 over the course of 2 classes. And so you're short. I mean, I think had they not gotten a single portal offensive lineman, they were looking at 11. Well, if 3 of those dudes get hurt and 2 of them are now freshmen, then you're an injury away from having another disaster. And I have noticed one thing Beamer does around here. If a position is a disaster in a given year, chances are that will never happen again. And I'm not, and I said it on coffee today. I don't think it's a lessons learned. I just think that they're like there's this muscle memory with it,
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we're not going to go through what we went through a few years ago ever again.
Yeah,
we're not going to
do this again.
Not going to go through a season with 2 running backs ever again. Not going to go through a season where we have to play 3 quarterbacks like at 21. Not going to go through a season where you've got a walking wounded and a journeyman at defensive end in the SEC. Think about that. No,
right.
That was another big issue in 2023. So I understand the numbers. And these guys also, Sharp and Newsome, both have like 2 years. They're not one and dones like Kamar Bell and Torricelli Simpkins. So, looking at it, I think Big Tree would be a tremendous upgrade inside. And then on the other side, you've got Trevon Ball, I thought Trevon played well. He's also 330 for Torricelli Simpkins' spot. Will Newsome or Sharp play there? Will Ball start? I don't know. I like Tree in the lineup better than Ball, but I like them both.
Yeah.
And so then I will say this. You got to replace Rashawn Lee at center based on what John Strickland told us on the show back in the day, but before we split into 2, before we divided in half. Boaz Stanley, I think that's your center. I'm comfortable projecting that right now. Who's backup center? If it's not Ryan Brubaker, will they train somebody? I don't know. Here's the other thing. That is I wrote about this too, Phil. So what if Josiah Thompson gets hurt? And I'll say that to say this because okay, last year everybody always gripes about cross training on the O-line because every O-line coach has been through here loves to do it. And that's because every offensive line coach worth a crap loves to do it. And if you look at the NFL, they do it all the time. And so South Carolina was actually an outlier last year because it seemed, although they were getting Simpkins ready to play center, I think in the bowl when Lee was sick, it did seem, Phil, like nobody cross-trained because there was never an instance where they said, we should probably move, let Ball start in place of Kamar Bell over here on the left side. That was it because his backup was Marquis Anderson. I think this may have been a bit intentional. Okay, everybody just play your position and here we go. But I do think this, and I wrote, this is an article I wrote a while back, if you remember the Big Spur. I do think this. I think that I don't want, if something happened to Thompson I don't have a lot of faith in anybody else going in there and playing left tackle unless it's Tree.
Right.
What do you guys think about that in the chat box, Nana Sports chat box? Because I think in that situation, you have players and experienced players on the inside that have talent. That left tackle, the backup left tackle spot, if something happened to Thompson, which, who knows? What would happen there?
Yeah. I mean, he would be the natural choice, right? I mean, at least just looking at what you have here.
Yeah.
He's played the position before, backed him up, but you don't want to, you want that talent on the line anyway. So you just, I mean, assuming that he's playing on the interior somewhere, you just move him over and then the number 2 fills inside. Yeah, at guard. Right.
And look, it's not like I said this happened last year. They didn't cross train. But Phil, in 2023, remember, they slid Vershawn Lee out to tackle.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he played both.
Nick Gargiulo played center. So it's not unprecedented to do. But I think that's a great solution. Clint from the Nana Sports chat box says, where does Cam Pringle fit in? I think maybe backup left tackle, like on the depth chart. Kind of like Brubaker last year. But you saw it when Lee was sick at the bowl, like Simpkins was playing center. Yeah. So maybe that's it. Cam's going to be good. He had to reshape, probably wasn't as ready, I guess, to go play as Josiah. Not quite as athletic. I think Cam Pringle long-term is a right tackle. Another thing I could see happening is move Jatavius Shivers to left tackle. Right. Maybe he's good. I mean, I'd have to look at his feet more and all that. I do think he's athletic enough to play out there, and he's got the dimensions.
Yeah. And he did well in spot duty coming in for Henry at the right tackle spot. So
my man plays some tight end too.
Yeah, right.
Hey, I'd keep doing that. I like him there in that imbalance line thing.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a big physical kid, and he's just going to get better and better. You have Shivers there, and then you can slide Cam Pringle in at right tackle. And then don't forget about Blake Franks. But these guys that are in their second year, Franks, Pringle, and then the other one's Thompson. I do think that Thompson will start at left tackle, obviously. That's probably a given. But I think that, when you look at it, I believe that Pringle, Franks, the 2 new freshmen, they're probably a year or 2 away. Just to be honest. And there's nothing to worry about there with Pringle. He just is a guy that's going to take some time. There's all kinds of 5-star offensive linemen that happens to, including one at North Carolina. There's one at Clemson that went 5-star O-lineman and wasn't until junior year. By the time they got on the field, they were pretty good. Clemson had one like that this year that's been there a while that got on the field. So Cam asked, can Marky Anderson find himself in the mix? He didn't play as many snaps as I thought. He was the one behind Kamar Bell, and that surprised me because sort of like, how when you hear things from practice and you can kind of get a sense, Phil, about who's going to actually be good that they're excited about.
Right.
When it's universal. J.C. Horn was a player that everybody's like, wow, about. Lenore Sellers was a guy that everybody was wow about last year. You didn't want to go too much in there because Rattler was the quarterback. And you just sort of know this guy's going to be Nick Emanware. You just kind of know this guy's going to be a baller. And that usually works out. And Marquis was that guy when he got in. I mean, the direct quote from a good contact of mine this was after the Georgia game where Big Tree won National Freshman of the Week because Georgia didn't have a sack in the game and all that good stuff. And Carolina played well and lost, but they played well. The direct quote, I'll never forget it because Marquis is a Spartanburg County guy, And it was like, wait till you see him play. So something's up. I know he struggled all year last year with injuries, with a season-ending surgery. and was not that healthy in spring. They held him for the spring game. Looks like $1 million. So it may be he was just kind of working his way back last year, but I was surprised he did not play more.
Yeah,
given the struggles up front that they had, especially at left guard at times.
And you get, I mean, maybe there was just a decision made that says, listen, we're in no real rush. Granted, he may be, a little better than what we have on the line right now, but what's more advantageous is to get him completely healthy.
Yeah.
And then put him into the competition for a starting position moving into this year.
Yeah, and he had a back injury,
which
dude,
that's got to be rough
be,
up front,
that
man.
Could linger, man. I mean, it's that's one thing that worries me getting older, man. Is I hope I don't have back issues. You're talking about a lot of pain. Man, I sat down to do leg presses this weekend at the gym, and my hip popped. And I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I got to make sure it's okay. But I'm just not flexible at this point. But I'll be better. Clint does make a prediction. Says the kid from Wake will have a shot to start on the interior. Yeah, I like him, Clint, because Nick Sharp. He's number one. He's Gastonia. There's some ballers from Gastonia.
All right.
Shout out to my buddy Chris, who lives in Gastonia. Big Gamecock fan. Hope he's listening. He's 330 pounds, and he's got that. He looks like a member of the '88 Braves, physique wise. He's got the belly.
He does.
I mean, he's got the belly, dude. But guys like that, dude, I've seen him play on Sundays, Saturdays, whatever. But he played 718 snaps for Wake Forest last season, which means he's in shape, even though. He's got
right. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
That's a lot of man. And so there's that. Cam has in the Nana Sports chat box has a move tree to right tackle and Kaysen at center. Just think Kaysen's very intelligent, will make a good center, possibly. I don't know if he's built, because you don't want a center built like a tackle because can they bend? Because you got to get the snap off.
Mm-hmm.
It's easier for a shorter offensive lineman with good feet to slide out like Vershawn. Heck, I remember in 2011, AJ Can slid outside against Arkansas. That was a disaster of a game. But I could see that too. They were hunting a center like the guards. I'll say this. I think if they'd have found a big time tackle or a guy they considered to be a big time tackle that could push for a starting job that was reasonably priced, they would have probably gone after. I think you would have seen one guard, one center, one tackle, but it wasn't meant to be. So, but the center thing was something they wanted from the start. And I think Boaz under the radar Stanley from Oconee County, Georgia, from Troy,
sneaking in from Troy.
Snuck on it. Boaz snuck in like a thief in the night.
That's right.
Stole the center job. But anyway, I think he's. I would go ahead and pencil him in there. But it'll be interesting. I'll wrap up with this on the O-line. It's an important offseason for these guys.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's important to get to decent. It's like me my last semester in college taking this stupid class with this moron that went to Harvard, Geology of North America. He thought the class there was a field trip. I'm like, I'm 22 years old, man. I got a real job. This is a commuter school. I don't have time to do group work. I hated that dude. But guess what? I needed to graduate, so I was like, I got to get to a D. It wasn't a major course. It was a general ed.
Yeah, it's just general. Yeah.
E minus. So that's the offensive line. You don't have to be perfect. It's never going to be A level, especially in this league. You got to be better than D. And I would grade them out harshly, no higher than a C minus last year because there were just too many games where they were just the weakness of one of the weaknesses of the offense. So And so much pass blocking, Phil, was the failure to get a push in the run game several times. That's not a quarterback messing up or some complicated slide protection or anything. That's just man on man.
Beating
missing
the man in
stuff,
front of
missing
you.
assignments. That shouldn't be that hard. All right, Inside the Gamecocks, the show will roll on. We are built by the Barndo Co. Also sponsored by Tony Pope, State Farm, Gamecocks in Georgia and North Carolina that want to support Gamecock businesses by purchasing insurance. Switch over to Tony Pope State Farm. Go to tonypope.com today. Be sure to tell them that you heard about it here on the show. Back after these messages, Inside the Gamecocks, the show on a Monday rolls on.
The Aventon Adventure 2 takes the same basic design as the original Aventon Adventure, making it an adventure bike designed to take you places that typical roads just don't reach, allowing you to ride whatever terrain you want based on your whims of the day. Look at what you're getting. Hydraulic disc brakes, torque sensor for responsive pedal assist, great LED lighting, suspension, a beautifully welded frame with excellent build quality, included rear rack, included fenders. The list just keeps going on.
Visit electricbikescharleston.com for more.
When you bundle home and auto, good things can happen. You get a local agent who can help you choose the right coverage for you at a price that's right for you.
Call State Farm agent Tony Pope today.
Hey Gamecock Nation, my name is Kyle, longtime listener of the show and avid golfer. I wanted to take my game to the next level, but let's face it, golf is a hard game to learn on your own. I heard the ad from McKellar Enterprises and reached out to the owner and former Gamecock golfer Meredith Taylor. In just 2 months of working with Meredith, I shot my lowest round ever and I've never felt more confident in my golf game. So if you're looking to take your game to the next level, go to McKellarEnterprises.org and book your lesson today with former Gamecock golfer Meredith Taylor. Go Gamecocks.
Think about that old ride of yours. The carpools, the road trips, the heavy hauls, date nights, and the dings and the dents and the sticky spills and cracker crumbs, and that smell that really never goes away. Do you really want to start the new year in the same old ride? Or is it time for a fresh start? Now's the time for incredible New Year's savings at Love Chevrolet on the entire lineup of award-winning vehicles. Love has more new Chevys on the lot than any other dealer in the Midlands in the color, style, features you've been looking for. With New Year's savings and Love's famous low price guarantee, your new ride in 25 will be invigorating, exhilarating, and affordable too. South Carolina's #1 volume Chevy dealer, I-26 at Harbison, and online at lovechevy.com. Together, let's drive.
That's the power of love. Love Chevy.
When you bundle home and auto, good things can happen. You get a local agent who can help you choose the right coverage for you at a price that's right for you.
Call State Farm agent Tony Pope today.
Welcome back, everybody, inside the Gamecocks, the show. JC Sherbert, Phil Mullinax in with you. Had a pretty good conversation about the O-line. Looking forward. I don't know. I take a lot of heart in the fact that the talent level there is just so much greater than it has been in years past, right? Like they have really hit the trail, hit the ground running, and brought in some top talent to start to develop and fill those positions. And in my mind, this upcoming season, JC, is one where you're going to start to really see that play out.
I hope so. You know, I do hope so. One thing I do think, talent-wise, you know, when you're talking about 4-star, 5-star offensive linemen, you know, they're like quarterbacks. You know, if Brad Lawing used to tell a friend of mine on offensive line, if you sign 5 and 3 work out, that's a good day at the office. Just because it's developmental, those guys get injured because they, you know, unlike on the D line, over the course of a game, the O line, they don't sub a whole lot. You know, D line, you're trying to roll guys in and out, in and out, in and out. O-line, not so much because you want cohesiveness. So they
Mhm.
get banged up. A lot of them have bad knees. It's hard to project them because it's a lot of times up to the good Lord,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know.
And it's repetitive motion typically over and over again for them. Like, and that can wear on a body as well. Like, I mean, if you're pretty heavy and running and, when you're just running, like, especially gap stuff, you're just going the same thing. You go down, get up, go down, get up, go. And that repetitive
Yeah.
type of nature is what
Yeah.
really wears on the knees
It's unnatural. Yeah.
yeah, and it points to, the whole reason to why if you are slow playing Marquis Anderson back with his back, then it just makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Because it's not you're gonna the second you start going live reps again is the second you start that timer again wearing those bodies down.
And it's weird too, Phil, because you could have a guy that's, gosh, I don't remember who it was. Was his name Harris back in the Brad Scott era? One of the top O linemen. Brad Scott signed like 5 really good O linemen one year, high ranked guys. All of them are injured. One of them got back, I think, during the Holtz era. Kevin Harris, I think was his name. Pretty good player.
Jason, maybe.
Jason Harris, something like that.
Or,
But he was the one guy left. He had been injured his whole career, but he came back, and I think he was a backup guard. Preston Thorne on the early game would know this. Maybe I'll ask him tomorrow. I think during the Holtz era, and played like his life and played pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and like Case and Henry hurt the entire 2 years, right? Injured, not help, couldn't stay, didn't seem to say, didn't have a problem last year at all. Had to go out of one game and Shivers came in or whatever, and that was fine. So I don't know, it's a weird spot and it's hard to hit. So that's why you sign as many as you can. I will admit that on the surface, when I said, well, they're losing 3 interior and they signed 3 interior from the portal, before I knew these guys had multiple years, obviously. And I kind of sat there and paused and said, why these young guys they brought in, why aren't they? But if you really think about it, if Marquis is kind of slower at coming along and you need depth and you didn't sign that many, I had to think about it for a second because I'm like, and I'll be honest, I'll be disappointed if the starting lineup is Josiah at left tackle, and then it goes Sharp, Boaz Stanley, Newsom, and Henry.
Yeah.
And my man Strickland, man, John always there to save me. Kevin Rivers was his name.
Rivers. Nice.
Kevin Rivers. There was a Jason Harris and a Kevin Harris back then, but Kevin Rivers, that was it. And Kevin played pretty well when he finally got back. And was part of, but that was that prior to these past classes under Beamer were the, some of the best offensive line classes before. That was like everybody talked a lot about that Brad Scott class and they just all got hurt. And speaking of John Strickland, though, that group that came in with him was pretty salty as well.
Yeah.
So shout out to my boy there. Appreciate it. Clint says Jason Harris was from Wade Hampton. He quit pretty early. Yeah, he was a stretch.
Yeah.
From what people said. You remember John Paul Gillis?
Clint? Not right off. No.
That was another guy from Wade Hampton from your school that Carolina took and just didn't work out too well. But then again, on the flip side, I never thought Justin Sorensen would play a down. Dude was a 3-year start, the Canadian lumberjack. Right. The Canadian lumberjack, he's 3 years. Oh, so there goes Sorensen. He's out there. Early Spurrier. So Craig says, I wonder if Brubaker ever makes it out there. Yeah, I guess he did play some in mop-up duty this year at center.
Yeah.
So I mean, he's going to compete for the job. They're not just going to hand it to Boaz Stanley, So we'll see sort of what happens. But I agree. Big year on the O-line. Big year on the O-line. And there's a lot of these guys have tools, right? They got Whittle talks about baseball players having tools. A 3-tool baseball player all the time. 4-tool, whatever. Is there a 4-tool? There's not a 4-tool baseball.
No, yeah, it's a 5-tool in baseball.
5-tool, that's right.
Yeah, 5-tool. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the season, but don't know much about baseball. I'll just talk out my butt. Well, throw the ball.
That's right. Who's pitching?
Swing. March, you're swinging. I'd be a terrible little league coach. I'd be worse than that guy from the Bad News Bears.
I'd be okay until, they actually started to get real competitive, right? Like, I know the basics enough to where I could probably coach a T-ball team. But beyond that, I would get exposed.
I just hate some of those personalities with those little league baseball teams. I just wouldn't. I don't think I could handle it. So I'd be like worse than Tom Hanks from A League of Their Own.
Right.
Before he found a heart and decided he wanted to coach girls. Maybe like what's his name from Major League? I could be that guy. All right. 10 minutes to game time. Everybody hang around. Dorn, you may run like Hayes, but you hit like I love that guy. Lou Brown. Clint said Lou Brown. Thank you, Clint. From the Nana Sports chat box, Clint mentions Sorensen was a massive human being. Mammoth, he says. I heard he could drink the what out of beer too. I heard this guy was like Andre the Giant level good. I heard that. I didn't witness it, so maybe it's an urban legend. But sounds like a lot of fun, and he overachieved and played really well. The Queen of the Cock says, "Are you a Cubs fan, JC?" No, but Phil is.
That's right. Yeah, I'm the North Side team. He's a South Side fan.
Yeah, my wife is a White Sox fan, which, by the way, I saw on ESPN the other day. They have the number 2 minor league in baseball. I'm assuming that's kind of like a recruiting class. Right?
Yeah, I would imagine. Yeah, there's some sort of rankings.
Good players. And the Braves were 27th. Like, what's happening?
I wonder how that bodes for
somebody. Yeah, Clint maybe can tell us that. Krager reminds me of the grinder, Gurminder Thin. So all off season. So all right, who was it? Jabari Levy in 05 was a starting left tackle, and Nashawn Goddard at right tackle. And so they had to replace both tackles off that 05 team, which did not have a good offensive line until I think they put Thomas Coleman and some walk-ons in there at guard. And it was a challenge. And so first game of the season, all since spring, we're hearing about Gurminder Thin. Gurminder, the grinder. Here we go. And I was in Starkville, Mississippi for that opener. And this dude, I don't think he ever played after this at all. I thought he was a guard. I really did, just looking at him. And I'm not the end all be all, but he was like spinning and like he looked like a mechanical boxer. Those mechanical robot boxers, Rock'em Sock'em Robot.
Oh, right. Yeah, right.
He was spinning like at a 90-degree angle. And Mississippi State was just Ellis Johnson's defense. Ellis was the D coordinator at Mississippi State at the time. Was just killing him. Gamecocks won that game 15-0 because the Brinkley brothers did not. And Mississippi State had the weirdest looking little quarterback I've ever seen in my life in that game. This 6'1" guy. Oh man! And then they finally benched him, which they needed to. And his mom got on the internet because I was working at Rivals at the time. His mom gets on the Mississippi State site, and just starts ripping everybody, Sylvester Croom and everybody. It was bad. So, but Thin was very disappointing in his debut. And then we had Robert Pavlovich, too, the tight end. It was the 3 Canadians on the team that Dave DeGuglielmo, I think, went up and recruited back in the Holtz era. The Queen of the Cocks says, that's tragic. The White Sox are terrible. And yes, the minor league is where you develop your guys and bring them up. They are terrible. But you know what? The Cubs are terrible too. And you know why? Because the Cubs actually make money. And just like Reinsdorf is a miserly dude that just wants to charge you money for tickets and hot dogs and make bank and not try to win, Ricketts is the same way.
Yeah, he loves that money.
He talked about it the other day. This guy's worth $5.3 billion. He's like, everybody thinks we got all this money. We don't. And I'll tell you this right now, members of the South Carolina Athletic Department were in Chicago and toured Wrigley Field and were given a tour, and it was explained to them by the Chicago Cubs how they monetized every inch of Wrigley Field, monetized it. They've kicked people off the rooftops. Dude, it's epic. Chicago business is all about this. Block out the corruption and the politics and all this stuff. Even your normal business people like this. How can I give you the shittiest product I possibly can and charge a premium price?
Yeah, that's right. And make you pay out the nose.
And make you pay through the nose for it. How can I give you the worst possible product, but you'll pay premium price? It's like that. One of my neighbors, the water company's even like that. And the water is good up here. Like, in the upstate, we have really good water. We had really good water. Like growing up, Greenville, Spartanburg. Atlanta is nasty. Columbia, I can't drink. I have to do the Brita or whatever.Moved up here, it's great water. Comes out of Lake Michigan, the non-polluted part. The Great Lakes. It's great water. It's I compared to Atlanta, where you paid for basically sulfur mixed with water in DeKalb County. It's terrific water. It's the only place I've ever lived that I can drink the water, out of the tap like I could down in Spartanburg, where I grew up. My neighbor got a $700 water bill the other day.
Whoa!
And they accused him of running an extra 10,000 gallons. 10,000. And there's nothing he can do about it. I'm like, what?
Yeah, you are like mercy at that point,
Yeah. Anyway, that's Chicago. But not to get sidetracked off all that. Me and Phil are going to have a little like Q&A after the break. We're going to talk about the 2025 football opponents. My wife walked in and she's waving at me. Yeah, she's trying to talk about our water bill now.
Our water. Okay.
But our water bill's kind of high too, but we got a turtle pond inside that runs all day.
Yeah. 2 teenage boys too. I mean, I'm sure that, yeah. Of course,
the youngest one alone.
Youngest one, yeah, I'm sure.
Bougie. Bruh. Yeah,
that's but every time I've seen him, not a hair out of place. So there's water involved in all that.
He's a beautiful man. Beautiful man. When he was a kid, though, this dude, his mom had to put a Post-it note on his head to remind him to shower. So he's done it.
Right.
Since middle school or late elementary, like 6th grade. But nevertheless, Phil and I are going to go through the schedule, and I want you guys and gals in the Nano Sports chat box to come up with this too. We're going to go through the opponents because right now things are going to change. Injuries will happen. Players will emerge. There's a lot of assuming when you preview next season. As Mike and Jamie say, and we say, a lot of it's just based on who you got coming back at quarterback because it's so important. And all of it will change. But we've been through the transfer portal. You've seen the portal classes, additions, subtractions. You've seen recruiting happen. There's another period coming up. You don't know, but on paper, who's going to be worse than this year? Who's going to be better than this year? Who do you think will be the same? Phil is going to have answers. I will have answers, and I'll keep them brief. And I want to hear your answers from the Nano Sports chat box. Inside the Gamecocks, the show built by the Bardo Co. rolls on after the top of the hour break. Talk to you soon.
Hey, this is Cornbread Cowboy, and you're listening to the show. We'll be right back.
The Aventon Adventure 2 takes the same basic design as the original Aventon Adventure, making it an adventure bike designed to take you places that typical roads just don't reach, allowing you to ride whatever terrain you want based on your whims of the day. Look at what you're getting. Hydraulic disc brakes, torque sensor for responsive pedal assist, great LED lighting, suspension, a beautifully welded frame with excellent build quality, included rear rack, included fenders. The list just keeps going on.
Visit electricbikescharleston.com for more. Welcome to Palm Casual Patio Furniture. Because we are the factory, Palm Casual has the ability to offer the highest quality outdoor furniture paired with world-class service. Since 1979, our factory showrooms have done our best to make the buying process as easy as possible for our customers. Our understanding of the many factors that go into your decision has helped us create our 30-day trial period that increases the level of comfort our customers feel during the shopping experience. Visit us in Somerville, Mount Pleasant, Myrtle Beach, and Bluffton, and online at palmcasual.com for our products and out-of-state locations. Go Gamecocks! Welcome home. That's what the Gamecocks say, and so does nationally recognized the Barndominium Company, where they are building dream homes in the Carolinas, Georgia, and Tennessee. Their turnkey process can be custom designed and takes 6 months on average. Make your dream a reality. Visit thebarndominiumco.com. Thebarndominiumco.com.
Mike here for one of the better dining options in the capital city. You know, when I first moved there, I asked people around the radio station, where are the best wings? Well, the consensus was D's Wings. That was then. Today, they still have the best wings, but it's so much more. Now in their new location at 415 Meeting Street in West Columbia, yeah, they get voted the best wings on a routine basis. Yes, they get voted the best sports bar on a routine basis, but they're not just about wings, and really, they're not just a sports bar. It is a family-run local restaurant and bar with 20 TVs and 25 beers on tap. And how about these daily specials? Every Monday night at D's, you've got 75-cent wings from 4 until closing. Tacos on Tuesday. Then on Wednesday, 18 wings and a pitcher of beer for $29. You've also got ribs and oyster bucket specials on Thursday. And no matter how big the party is, 20 or more, no problem. Just call ahead of time and they'll take terrific care of you. They'll do takeout as well. And guess what? A human will answer the phone and take the order. Billy and his staff do an outstanding job. Check out D's 415 Meeting Street in West Columbia.
Welcome back, everybody, inside the Gamecocks. The show, Hour 2, fires up now. Taking a look at the 2025 South Carolina football schedule. Who's better? Who's worse? Expectations versus reality? I don't know. Can you extrapolate from recruiting classes? Transfer portal or high school or otherwise.
Well, players and coaches are important. Mm-hmm. And before we get to this, I do want to pass along some happenings. Some happenings in college football. Well, Chip Kelly's going back to he's going to give it another college try in the NFL. I think it's a suicide. I think Pete Carroll just was kind of salty about getting let go from the Seahawks.
Right.
When of the Seahawks, I think the Seahawks got to the Super Bowl. Did they get the Super Bowl under Mike Holmgren maybe once? But really, they've done absolutely jack squat until Pete Carroll got there and won the Super Bowl and all that. I think he's kind of a little salty about getting let go and wants to coach again. And he's Pete. And so the Raiders hired him. I got Tom Brady's team.
Right. Yeah. That's kind of
the
weird.
Las Vegas Raiders. And so he is the coach there, and he has hired Chip Kelly as his OC. So Chip was one and done at Ohio State after winning the national title, and the second coordinator to leave from OSU. Because did I say Al Golden left Ohio State on something I did today? I did. He left Notre Dame. My bad. Jim Knowles. Left and went to Penn State.
Knowles,
I think I did say Al Golden. My God.
Oh,
well.
That's all right.
So there's that. So there's that. Also, Alabama makes an interesting hire. They didn't fire anybody, but they bring Ryan Grubbs, who was with the Seahawks last year. Was with Kalen DeBoer at the University of Washington, has a really good reputation. Probably calls it a little bit more like Kalen DeBoer wants him to call it. And that's significant because the Gamecocks play Alabama next year. They don't play Tennessee, but Mike Eckler, I think that's how you pronounce it, former Georgia assistant, is going to Nebraska to join Matt Rule's staff. He was the special teams coordinator and outside linebackers coach for Tennessee for the last 4 years under Josh Heupel. So he's heading home to coach for the Huskers, who I think now that they've solved their little problem are going to be quite good.
Yeah, they've removed the biggest impediment to them.
Yes,
actually finding the end zone.
Yes,
the guy that they hired to figure out how to get in there. But
what a polar opposite of people. Both are a little weird. Both are kind of weird, But
yes,
Dana Holgerson, man, that dude's a cowboy, man. So glad to see him get a gig out there and. with Raiola and the receivers they have and the receivers they got, I think depending on their schedule, you can see Nebraska make some. I'm finally ready to say Rule will make some noise because he got rid of the basically the car boot on his car.
That's right.
The parking boot, I guess.
Right. He took the governor off of the engine.
No doubt, man. So anyway, all right. So let's go through the schedule. Starts with Virginia Tech in Atlanta. Phil, the Hokies had a lot of high-profile portal departures.
Mm-hmm.
They brought some guys in. You never know. They do have their quarterback back for next year. They had a disappointing season. I'll be honest, I thought Brent Pry was a surprising hire, but I always give coaches kind of the benefit.
Right.
Because it may not be somebody I would hire, but sometimes it turns out pretty good. Jed Fish, I thought Arizona was nuts to hire him. Well, they hired him. He did well and parlayed that into the Washington job. Speaking of the Huskies, Kurt Signetti was not somebody that was, and I've known him, and I always thought the world of him. I didn't expect him to do what he did at Indiana, deserving the playoffs or not. At the same time, I was shocked Scott Frost didn't work at Nebraska. I was shocked Chip Kelly didn't do better at UCLA. Jimbo Fisher seemed like he was going to work. So you never know. I don't know that Brent Pry's results have been any better than Justin Fuente, who got fired. I certainly think he's liked. He's a lot more well-liked around Blacksburg than Fuente was.
True.
But Virginia Tech, man, I think, I think it's a dangerous game because South Carolina has not started all that great in the opener. They had a scary opener last year against a team that was not, I think they made a bowl, but, Georgia State a couple of years ago would have been a whole lot closer had it not been for the special teams block punts. Eastern Illinois was god awful, Beamer's first year. And then, of course, there was the North Carolina thing where they gave up, a record number of sacks and all that. We know that story. So I think it's a big game. It's a high-profile game. It's one like the North Carolina game where there's going to be exposure and a chance to go out and do some good things early. But it scares me. But this isn't necessarily about the Gamecocks and the matchup. It's about how are the Hokies going to be. Yeah. I'm going to go out with a hard, like a slightly worse for them next year, because they had a kind of a tough-ish schedule. Honestly, there's no reason to schedule Vandy on the road, even though I know they scheduled them when Derek Mason was the coach there. Which is an easy W. A nice trip to Nashville, right? There's no reason to schedule Rutgers home and home. There's no reason to schedule Marshall. I mean, if you're Virginia Tech, they should have beaten Miami. The ACC stole that game from them about as bad as the rest stole that LSU game from Carolina. Yeah, that was ridiculous. What happened to them there? It was stupid. Had Clemson down. Clemson turned on the want to on defense and dominated them. They just never got going like you would have expected them to. Did have some nice wins. Did make a bowl where rode the boat. Minnesota got them, cut them pretty good in Charlotte. They have a new coordinator, Steve Sifkla it's an off the radar hire. Those end up being pretty good. Never thought Chris Marv, based on his track record, was a guy that was ready to go coordinate that defense up there. They have high expectations. I'm going to say slightly worse just based on the personnel they lost, including Jalen Lane, their very fine receiver, who's Brian Lane's son, the coach at Westside, Cutter Woods coach, and a guy I knew from high school. He's off, out of eligibility. So, how good are they going to be? I'm going to say slightly worse. Doesn't mean anything about the matchup with the Gamecocks because that's a matchup. But I think body of work, VT will be a little down, and then they're probably going to have a decision to make as far as continuing on.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I don't think their schedule sets up very well for them to have some early success, obviously, with South Carolina as their opener in Atlanta. And then, of course, Vanderbilt being number 2. So careful on that, especially with Pavia and the kill zone still in operation. The band back together. But then you get ODU, Wofford to start. What's interesting is like I'm trying to so Virginia Tech 500 in conference last season in the ACC, first year head coach. It really depending on how good North Carolina State is, which is a giant question mark in week 5. It's not. It's going to be interesting. I kind of lead with you. They did lose a lot in the portal, is what I was just sitting here reading and looking over. It would not surprise me for them to be down and then kind of like record wise pull off exactly what they did this year and still be a little down because this team's going to be finding themselves early, and you got a real tall task of finding yourself as Virginia Tech against 2 SEC teams to open up your schedule.
Yeah, and they haven't started well.
No,
under Pride, like lost to Marshall on the road his first year, and then last year is that Rutgers lost, the Vanderbilt lost. Close games. I mean, by the time they lost to Miami, Phil, they were what 3-7-2, whatever. Like 15 points away from being undefeated, and one of those losses was in overtime to the Commodores. I think they're dangerous with the running quarterback and all that. And like I said, the portal additions are unknowns that can work out for you, as we've seen.
Right.
And then the D coordinator, his kind of background tracing it. Number one, he was a small school coach. Those guys can coach. Because all the talent, you can't out talent people in Division II. It's all kind of the same. And he's at one of the Wisconsin branch schools. They can coach football. And then was with Narduzzi for a while. That made his way to the Cardinals as a linebackers coach. So I think that's interesting and something to circle because it's going to be an unknown for Carolina going to the opener. But and the Queen of the Cox says that was my point a couple of shows ago about Virginia Tech JC. From the chat box, Nana Sports chat box. Beamer's teams don't start fast. Historically, they don't.
Yeah.
And really, I don't know. South Carolina normally wins openers. It's rare when the Gamecocks drop an opener.
Right.
Although from 2020 to 2023, there were some. But it is rare to start 0-1. And Spurrier, I don't think Spurrier really got off to such a fantastic start every year either. I think Lou did for the most part, and Lou's teams kind of faded at the end. But Spurrier, one thing he did do was win. And the other thing you have to keep in mind is under Spurrier, South Carolina played that long line of Thursday night games, and a lot of times it was against another Power 5.
Right.
I mean, that's not it. Would either they go up to Vanderbilt to play an opener. They went to Mississippi State, like I said, in 2006. NC State home and home back to back. They opened with North Carolina and Charlotte. They opened with North Carolina and Columbia. Opened with East Carolina and Charlotte one year. That's not a Power 5, but it's a neutral site game. So the Gamecocks have typically played, they typically have not played just some bag of donuts in the opener through the years. But we'll see what happens with all that. All right, next team is South Carolina State.
South Carolina State. My expectation is they probably fall off a little bit.
You think so?
You're working through Buddy's classes, and starting to get the new guy in there and trying to build something. I think as you work through Buddy Pugh's players, and then I think because this is his second year, right? And traditionally, it's not unreasonable to expect that in a second year you'd be a little down over the year before.
I'm going to say Shinnis Berry is the coach there.
Mm-hmm.
Shinnis. I think I hope so.
Is it Shinnis? Shines?
Shinnis.
I don't know. He'll forgive us.
I'm going to say this. This guy, I don't think is just a good coach. I think he's a great coach. Are they going to go 5-0 in the MEAC and go to the Celebration Bowl again? I don't know. But I think they'll be a better team. But no offense to Buddy Pugh. But you're right in saying that the transition, sometimes that second year, there's a little bit of a drop off. But we'll see. I think this guy can coach. I mean, he won at Benedict, won pretty big at Benedict, got them to the Division II playoffs 2 years in a row and went 22-2. I think they made a fantastic hire, but always good to play South Carolina State, the Marching 101 comes to town and all that. It'll be good this year. Hopefully this year there's not a weather rescheduling. Just have it on a nice Saturday. The guys from Orangeburg come up. All right, next opponent. Dun, dun, dun.
We are Vanderbilt. Speaking of early tests, here we are. 2 games and then open on the road. No, this is a home game.
Yeah, Vandy's
home game
at
this
home.
year. Yeah, this is Vandy at home. Is Vandy going to be better this year than next or than last? I don't know. I think that it's reasonable to expect that Vanderbilt will take a step back heading into this next year. Even with Pavia back, familiarity of the, Jerry Kill offense.
The kill zone.
I don't know if you can just catch that lightning in a bottle like you did last year, just 2 years in a row there. It's going to take a little bit more. Now, that being said, Clark Lee's doing a hell of a job to get where they were last year. It's the toughest job in the freaking SEC, and he's doing well.
By a mile.
I mean, yeah. But a step back at the end of the season is not going to surprise me.
A big win by them in the Birmingham Bowl over another upstart with gold helmets, Georgia Tech.
Mm-hmm.
You have to wonder what kind of life went out of that team, not the program at Tech, because I think Brent Pry's doing it. Or is it? It's not Brent Pry. Yeah, it's Brent Pry. No, Brent Pry is at Virginia Tech.
Yeah, it's
Brent
Key.
Brent Key. Good
yes.
God.
Mm-hmm. I know.
Brent
Monday.
Key. I think he's Monday. I have to get my brain. It's like an Apple computer, 2E. Remember the Apple 2E?
Yes.
I'm running Microsoft Windows 95 on this bad boy. But Brent Key has done a fantastic job, right? And but you have to wonder about this team. If it kind of that loss to Georgia just took that was a brutal way to lose.
Mm-hmm.
You'd almost rather just get blown out, but losing that 8, how many overtimes or whatever and you haven't really had a lot of opportunities to beat them through the years. And Vandy beat them by 22 in the bowl. Pretty good. I think Vandy's going to be exactly the same. The results, will they be the same? I don't know. The llama is in Nana Sports chat box. Welcome in the llama. Welcome in, old llama.
Yes,
to our chat
elder
box.
llama.
The elder llama. Oh my, oh my, oh my. We should do a little chant whenever he comes in, like
something in there. Yeah,
like a real chant. So yeah, I think they're gonna be exactly the same, just as good. Probably not a lot better, but not a lot worse. I think they'll hang in the balance, scare the bejesus out of people, maybe even Carolina. And you better bring your lunch if you're going to play Vandy. And that was one of the biggest, most impressive performances by South Carolina last year, Phil, because I was at that game, and I've said this before. You look up at the scoreboard and you see the stats, and South Carolina's got 200 and something yards, and Vandy's got 30.
Yeah,
and it's like nothing in the second quarter.
Right.
And this is how teams lose to this team. Yep. I also got a chance to see their personnel up close, and talent-wise, they're not. They don't look like an SEC team. I mean, it's all. It's not smoke and mirrors. It's just it's a lot of system, and teams like that. I mean, just like Paul Johnson at Georgia Tech, recruited at a Southern Conference level for years. blew a hole in the roster the size of the crater that killed the dinosaurs, or the crater where the comet that hit the dinosaurs hit. And Tech is just now recovering for that. And he was very arrogant about it too. But because he ran the option, and he's one of the best play callers running the option, except when he faced Brent Venables in the history of college football, they hung in the balance. They play Georgia Southern and win 48-45. They turn around and play a really good Florida State team that had NFL players all over the roster.
Right.
They lose 48-45 or win 48-45. It was just how it went for Georgia Tech. And I think Vanderbilt's that same type of, you better be careful in that game. So I think they're going to be the same.
Yeah.
So the llama has spoken. We love it. All right, who's next? Kentucky? Is that Missouri?
Missouri, yeah. Missouri. A trip to Como. Going to kick things off here earlier than usual. They're in week 4. I don't know what to expect out of Missouri. I really don't. I think, you know what, South Carolina beat them in such dramatic fashion last year, right? To shake that Drinkwitz stink off of the Beamer era. And I think as a South Carolina fan, JC, at least from my perspective, it was hard to gauge Missouri because I'm looking at it through that lens of Carolina should beat this team and they're not. So that's all my frame of reference was last year with Missouri is if we don't beat this team, we're better than, then what the hell are we even doing? And then we got that off our back. But Missouri was a good team. I mean, it was a pretty solid team last year. Not just the record wise, they're right up there, in that big bunch that's tied for 5-3 in the SEC. Another, 3-loss team out of the SEC heading into the postseason. So I'm going to say you've got talent in that immediate area. It would stand to reason that this team should be a little bit better this season than they were last.
Missouri doesn't play a road game until October 18th.
That may hurt them down the stretch, right? Because if that's
they got a lot of home games. They go to Auburn and the Kill Zone back to back. Then the A&M Mississippi State come in, and then the last 2 are at Oklahoma and at Arkansas. But man, I mean, it's Central Arkansas where Scottie Pippen went to school. And they renewed. So this is a rivalry, a border. We talked about border state rivalries the other day about how Michigan and Ohio State hate each other. And I mentioned Oregon and Washington. This is a border rivalry that's pretty intense too, Kansas, Missouri. Missouri's been searching for a rival in the SEC. They tried to make Arkansas into one and all that. Kansas is their name. They hate each other.
Yeah.
Now, Kansas, the Jayhawks, I think they peed in everybody's cornflakes would be the best way to describe it. They peed in BYU's, they peed in Colorado's, and they won games down the stretch, and all amazingly got blown out by Baylor with a bowl on the line. It's weird. Their coach is really, really good. That's going to be a big test for Missouri at home. You've got the always tough Louisiana Raging Cajuns, and then the Gamecocks come in. I think, they got the quarterback from Penn State, the backup that got in the portal early. He's a dual threat guy. I'm going to say this: Brady Cook's absence, and then you lose Luther Burden. They did pick up some good players in the portal again. I love Ahmad Hardy, the running back from Monroe that they got. Love Damon Wilson, who they got from Georgia on defense. I'm going to say slightly worse, knowing that without Cook, but knowing that the schedule sets up for a fantastic start, like a 6-0 undefeated type start. But Kansas and the Gamecocks and Alabama are 3 of the first 6 home games. That's not easy. It's not a walk in the park, but it's scary to go out there that early. But I'll say this: last season, Carolina beats Kentucky at home in November in a game that could have gone either way, back and forth, exciting football game, right? And I was worried about going up there.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So I was like, that's a quick turnaround. They remember that game. Mark Stoops has had Carolina's number, all that thing, and we saw how that turned out. So it's really year to year, but I'm going to say slightly worse. I don't see Missouri winning double digits again next year, although they may. I mean, I like the way the schedule sets up, and if they get on,
their schedule is favorable. Yeah, that's it, because
And
they don't play a lot of. There's not a gauntlet in here of like murderers row, right? You're going to get tested at Kansas or with Kansas. Y'all know what that's about. South Carolina's obviously going to test them, and then Alabama. I mean, who knows? Because talk about question marks. There's one.
Kreger says he's glad that Cook is gone.
Yeah,
Cook.
Yeah,
Cook played his butt off against the Gamecocks. So and I'm glad Burden's gone too. That guy's pretty good. Hard to replace those guys, but I think they've got some talent, and they will every year. Eli Drinkwitz is there.
Yeah.
He does a great job in the portal. They do a really good job, fighting battles in state. Their whole personnel, the way they get players and stuff is impressive. I like that. Say what you want about Eli Drinkwitz. I don't mind his little, attitude or whatever. I think so many coaches are boring these days. I kind of like guys that mix it up.
Yeah, I like the personality.
I don't like the fact he's owned the Gamecocks.
No,
I don't like that at all. But Carolina's got the trophy for now, so they go out there. I'm going to say slightly worse with them. And Wayne adds a very important point. We have Lenore Sellers, and they don't. But yeah, we'll get into the matchups and all that. I'm just about Missouri. I think slightly worse. I don't think they're going to be quite as good as they were this year, where they really underachieved as far as being in some games they shouldn't have been in. Boston College, weren't as good as they thought they would be, but they managed to win 10 and win a lot of close ones. So next team.
Yeah, looking at the Kentucky Wildcats coming to Columbia. It's pretty easy to say this team should be better than it was last year, right? I mean, my goodness, you hit rock bottom there, Kentucky. There was only one team in the league that was worse than you, and quite frankly, they may have beaten y'all if y'all had met up. That might have been Mississippi State's one.
They used to be, they used to play. They were permanent opponents from 92 to 03, permanent cross division opponents.
Here's what Kentucky needs to be worried about. You need to be worried about mentally holding this team together early, because it's not friendly the way it stacks up. Yeah, you got Toledo to open things up. That's cool. And you got Eastern Michigan in week 3. Your SEC schedule opens up with Ole Miss, South Carolina, Georgia, Texas, and Tennessee.
Jeez.
Yeah. So Stoops, you're going to need to do a good job of holding it together. But by virtue of the fact that they were so bad last season, I got to say they're going to improve this year.
They've got 41 inbound players. 41 inbound players. And that's a lot. Now, it's not really a lot, because honestly, just about everybody's in that in that space in the SEC. They lost 23 players, a lot of players that have played a lot of football for them, including Jordan Dingle, who's going to be at South Carolina, Dane Key, Barry and Brown, Keyshawn Silver, all those guys. Keyshawn Silver signed with Southern Cal. Good luck with that. I bet they paid him through the nose. But so I don't know. And their quarterback, I'm not going to go out on a hardcore limb here, but Zach Calzada, who led Texas A&M to a win over Alabama as a youngster.
Right.
I'm just going to go ahead and say he's going to be better than Vandergrift, who just did not want to play football last year at all.
He looked completely disinterested.
You know, they got True Edwards from Louisiana Tech, who's a good player. McKeese Grace is a big defensive end from South Dakota. That's going to be their, but they lose all those good players on their defense, Phil, or most of them.
Mm-hmm.
Zach Calzada, how much of an upgrade will he be? Same offense they always run. Who's the running back? They got one from the portal.
Oh, yeah, they
Nebraska.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like South Carolina's chances to win that one, and to go to Beamer to go 4-1 against the Wildcats. Order has been restored.
Yes,
in that series.
That's right.
I mean, you know that's we're all sitting around scratching our. How the hell did Kentucky pass South Carolina? You know, so you got to exercise the demons.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what Stoops' buyout is. But there is a world in which, after about 7 weeks of football, you're relieving him of his duties.
Awfully funny. Summerall didn't leave Tulane for a bigger job, right?
Yep, right. Mm-hmm.
Pretty interesting. I actually want Stoops to go 6-6, get to a bowl, and
head off the aisle.
Let Summerall go someplace else.
And let him. Yeah, don't bring a good coach into the hot name into the league.
Yeah, man, come on. So,
well, let's hit the midway point here of the season, JC. Looking at LSU, this one will be in Baton Rouge. What are your expectations for the Tigers this year?
Better.
Same. I kind of think
we're gonna. I see they're ranked like just slightly inside the top 10. I thought this. Okay, LSU beat Carolina. They beat Ole Miss. Close games. They go to Arkansas and have an impressive win. And then something happens. Like the A&M, like the second half of the A&M game through that Alabama game. And then remember they lost to Southern Cal at the beginning of the year.
Yes.
Something was just not right there. And then they play Vanderbilt, the kill zone. And it was tough. It was a 7-point win. And then all of a sudden they go beat Oklahoma, and then they're a aligned underdog against freaking Baylor in the Texas Bowl and just beat the snot out of them. That was the easiest money. That was the same day Carolina's Bowl was. That was the easiest money.
Oh, LSU. Yeah.
Dude, I loaded up. I was like, what? I was like, who opted out? And I looked at their opt-outs. I'm like, it's not that big of a deal. Harold Perkins is back. I thought LSU signed on paper a lot of good names out of the portal. They obviously got they got Garrett Nussmeier coming back. I think they'll find receivers. You know, Louisiana team seems to produce them. It's down for the Gamecocks. It's down there, and that's tough.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate thing is, you're having to play it down there this year. Yeah, but.
Unless you're Alabama, that's the toughest place to play in college football.
Right.
Alabama, for some reason, has like an ungodly good record in Baton Rouge.
Just seems to have their.
It hasn't mattered.
Right?
It has not mattered how good they've been. They play them at night, whatever. And so South Carolina goes down there, but I think LSU stock up. Who's the next one?
Yeah, I agree. Oklahoma, another team that, as I look at it, their stock should be up year over year this year as well.
I think so. I think it's kind of interesting. Brent Venables is going to take back over the defense and call it. They tried to get Knowles from Ohio State, but they didn't. Wes Godwin, the recently fired Clemson coach, going out there as an analyst.
Yep.
Reunited and it feels so good. Boomer Suda. Now, again, we're talking about just Oklahoma, not how they match up with Carolina or whatever. I think it's a game South Carolina definitely should be, in theory, right now, favored to win. It's Oklahoma. I mean, if they're back, how back are they going to be? I get a feeling because they got the quarterback from Washington State. And here's my question about him. Everybody's like, that kid's great. I understand that. But I also understand there's a big difference between the schedule Washington State played last year, which was nobody, basically the Mountain West plus a couple, and UW. And they beat UW. They beat Washington, which was a average football team. And Southeastern Conference, especially with like the complete screw job this past year, and probably next year too, that Oklahoma got as far as who they have to go play. It's ridiculous.
Right.
And so that's my question: is the Washington State apparatus on offense going to be better? Because you look at them last season, Phil. I'm not sure. I mean, the Oklahoma fans will tell you it's play calling. Just like fans here will tell you it's play calling. I'm not so sure it's play calling. Their receivers were all hurt.
I mean, they were depleted there for about 5 weeks, like where they had
offensive line. I said that in the summer. I was like, I don't know how they're going to.
Yeah, that's my biggest thing is like, and I think that this entire season is going to revolve on whether or not they truly hit on what they brought in.
Yeah,
fix that O-line. If they hit, then you could be looking at an 8-9 win Oklahoma climbing their way back right into it.
Yeah,
if they miss, you could be looking at a 5-4 win Oklahoma team just because of the way their schedule stacks up.
I agree, and I feel like 8, 7, 8. You just don't. I mean, who knows? They may be the surprise of college football. Who knows? I didn't think they needed to get rid of Brent Venables, and I do think his defense will be salty next year.
Mm-hmm.
I think they'll be salty on defense just like they were. I think he's fixed that, like I said. All right, who's next? Is it Alabama?
Alabama. Look at that. Alabama. Are they going to be better or worse? I think Alabama is one of those teams that's just going to be flat. I hate to tell y'all that down there in Tuscaloosa, but I don't think if you another win, maybe, I don't know, but not surprised if there'd be another loss.
I'm going to say stock down.
Down.
Yeah, I don't know. Now, are they going to be? Well, could they go 9-4 next year, 10-3? Yes.
Yeah,
they have plenty of good football players, and I still think DeBoer is a good coach. It's just something off about it to me. And I don't know that in 2 years you can sit there and just move on from the Nick Saban era. Maybe not. Les Miles took over for Saban at LSU and won a national championship in his third year and was pretty salty in his second. That said, they didn't have a transfer portal then. You weren't losing 30 players every year.
Right.
You weren't flipping your roster over. I think Kalen DeBoer can evaluate talent. I think he's great at finding talent. There's probably players going to Alabama now that are off the radar that are really freaking good. But the game's in Columbia. And I said I wasn't going to talk about that. But I'm going to say slightly down. I'm going to say it's going to be another year. Record-wise, it may be the same, but there were times last year we thought Bama was going to win the SEC, be a lock for the playoff, all that good stuff. And there were some impressive moments. First half against Georgia, LSU game. My God, they were great. And then there was for all that. Then there's Oklahoma. And look, it'd have been a different story had Oklahoma like beaten Alabama and then gone to Baton Rouge and even lost close to LSU. LSU thumped them. And then they lost to Navy in the what have you bowl. Armed Forces.
That's right.
Whatchamacallit bowl. All right, let's take a break and then and then finish this up because we only have 22 minutes left in the Monday show. It goes fast these days, dude.
That's good. Yeah, man. It has been good. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Inside the Gamecocks show will roll on after this. Built by the Bardo Co. Don't forget Gamecock Traditions, folks. Go check out their stuff. Seems like every day there's a new item that I want to purchase, but my wife won't let me. Maybe your wife or your husband will let you. Also, if you're in town next weekend for the baseball series or any other reason, stop on by and see them at their two locations. One's in the Northeast out at Village of Sandhills. The other is out in the great town of Lexington, South Carolina. Inside the Gamecocks show rolls on after this final break. JC and Phil.
Hey, this is Cornbread Cowboy, and you're listening to the show. We'll be right back.
The Aventine Adventure 2 takes the same basic design as the original Aventine Adventure, making it an adventure bike designed to take you places that typical roads just don't reach, allowing you to ride whatever terrain you want based on your whims of the day. Look at what you're getting. Hydraulic disc brakes, torque sensor for responsive pedal assist, great LED lighting, suspension, a beautifully welded frame with excellent build quality, included rear rack, included fenders. The list just keeps going on.
Visit electricbikescharleston.com for more. Welcome to Palm Casual Patio Furniture. Because we are the factory, Palm Casual has the ability to offer the highest quality outdoor furniture paired with world-class service. Since 1979, our factory showrooms have done our best to make the buying process as easy as possible for our customers. Our understanding of the many factors that go into your decision has helped us create our 30-day trial period that increases the level of comfort our customers feel during the shopping experience. Visit us in Somerville, Mount Pleasant, Myrtle Beach, and Bluffton, and online at palmcasual.com for our products and out-of-state locations. Go Gamecocks! Welcome home. That's what the Gamecocks say, and so does nationally recognized the Barndominium Company, where they are building dream homes in the Carolinas, Georgia, and Tennessee. Their turnkey process can be custom designed and takes 6 months on average. Make your dream a reality. Visit thebarndominiumco.com. thebarndominiumco.com.
Welcome back in, everybody, inside the Gamecocks, the show, final segment of Monday. Looking at the schedule for South Carolina for 2025 on the football side of things. Whose stock do we think is rising? Whose stock is taking a dip? We get to everyone's favorite team these days, Ole Miss, the media darling of the SEC. One thing they do have that JC and I both appreciate is a coach with some personality. May not be the right personality for you, but one thing Lane Kiffin does not lack is personality.
Yes. The llama, by the way.
Yeah.
Bring the llama has spoken, Phil.
Yeah, we need to get like some those little chimes or whatever.
Yes. The chimes. Like,
I've got
the golden child.
No, yeah. Yes.
My dear sweet brother Noopsy. Noopsy, son of Noopsy. But anyway, the llama states DeBoer is an incredible coach, but he is not a fit culturally. Very wise. I agree. Trust me, I go on Tuscaloosa radio every Thursday. They just like talking to me for some reason. And they're mad about, they're all fired. I get on there and I'm like, what are you guys upset about? Well, Alabama they just didn't get that first down. They needed to get there at the end. Alabama won 51-7. Yeah, but you just got the sense that offense. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's like, I'm like, man, you guys had it good for a long time. Yeah. Thank your lucky stars. Enjoy the Outback. Enjoy Tampa. You hadn't been in a long time.
Right. It's been
like my friend Corey Miller always told me about Tampa. Don't go to Mons Venus. It's a strip club. Don't go to Mons Venus.
Don't go to Mons Venus.
The kill zone. Don't go to Mons Venus. The llama. One of the llama. It'd be funny if the llama popped in and went, "Don't. Do not go to Mons Venus." But anyway, I'm sure Alabama, fans enjoyed that. And losing to Michigan for the second year in a row. How long has it been since Alabama's lost to a team 2 years in a row? Because Michigan got them in the Rose Bowl last year too.
Yeah, that's right. I didn't even consider that. Yeah.
I can't think of, because Auburn never won it. Auburn would win down there. They never won in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah. 2 years in a row.
In a row, dude. Yeah. In a row.
You probably got to go way back. Way back. Carolina almost did it.
Yeah. Alabama was 09. I'd have to go back. I mean, I know they haven't. I can't think of anybody in the SEC that's beaten them 2 years in a row.
No.
Oh, Tennessee? No.
That was one. They
Tennessee's won
swapped.
two straight in Knoxville.
Mhm.
LSU's don't think LSU's done it. Well, yeah.
Yeah, not in this most recent run.
Not
Yeah,
in this
no.
lifetime. Was it Ole Miss when Hugh Freeze was there?
It's either Ole Miss or
I think-
A&M, one of the two.
Yeah, one of those two. I think it was Ole Miss.
You might be right, JC. You might be right, but it would be back. It would be way back.
Way back. Yeah.
Way-
Yeah, I think it was because I think Ole Miss beat them in Oxford and then turned around and won in Tuscaloosa, like that 48-43 game where they had that miracle touchdown that they threw, or maybe it was vice versa. I do think Ole Miss beat them 2 years in a row, though. So there we go. There's your thing. They did not lose to Clemson 2 years in a row. They lost 1 year and then lost
1 year.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why I was like in a row because that was the first team that popped into my head. I was like,
Nah,
they
beat
play
them
in back-to-back years.
Bama won in 15, Clemson won in 16, Bama won in 17, Clemson won in 18.
Yeah, they went back.
4 years in a row they played. So
Here's what I'm going to say. Ole Miss emphatically worse, trending down.
I don't think they're going to be as good either. They lose too many players.
Yep.
Of course, they may have replaced them. They love the backup to Jackson Dart. They think he's.
I was going to ask you about what do we know about this guy?
It was Austin Shepard. Is that his name?
I think it is Shepard. Hold on, I'm looking it up now.
So he's a good player. Lane's going to dial up the ball play.
Simmons.
Austin Simmons.
Yeah.
It's a Monday. Good player. Don't know who else behind him, but I think they're going to have talent. They're going to be good. It's not the Ole Miss doesn't have the biggest stadium in the world.
Right.
It's not particularly loud. It's hard to. It's not an easy place to go win because they're good. But shoot, I think in non-pandemic years, Carolina's won twice in a row out there in 2008 and 2018.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of wish I wish that game was in Columbia because I think with their personnel, and you never know by November what teams will look like, but I think that personnel wise, I don't think they're quite as good as this year's team. And I think that probably had a lot to do with Lane being not abnormally, because I'd have been mad too. Because like I said, like we talked about the other day, even Notre Dame, as good as they were playing, Ole Miss, Notre Dame in South Bend in the first round is a coin flip.
Oh, yeah.
In my opinion, a coin flip.
Oh, for sure.
But I mean, and it's he had it set up, and don't lose to the Gators.
I know.
That was the football. I called that one. Remember?
Mm-hmm.
Mike Morgan thought I was crazy.
Yeah, that's
I
right.
was like, the football gods game, guys. I mean, because I was like, Florida is not the same team they were. They've hit their stride. They beat LSU. They have confidence. Ole Miss is just kind of like, wow, we hung 60 on Arkansas. We've arrived. It's at the swamp. Napier runs this offense that'll just drain your soul if he's churning out first downs.
Yeah,
he ain't in a hurry. He kind of runs offense a lot like he speaks. Well,
that's right. Very deliberate.
right now.
Man.
Let's run the play.
We're going to get there.
So there you go. I mean, I that was happening.
Well, there's something like Jackson Dart's production, right, is going to be hard to replace. Not only that, though, but like how long were Dart and like Dart transferred from USC? When Kiffin took the job? Like he was there. Was it the first year or maybe the second
starter
year?
or 3-year starter? Because they had who'd they have before Dart?
Oh goodness. Let's see. Hold on. Let's see. Well, okay. So career stats for Jackson Dart include
because Dart started as a true freshman at SC.
Yeah, at SC. Yep. And then 22, 23, 24, all at Ole Miss. So that would be 1, 2 Kiffin's second year because he's been there 4 years, right? Mm-hmm. Either way, the familiarity with him and the comfort in that offense, right, is going to be tough to replace. Although Simmons is, a good-looking prospect and should be able to fill in, but I don't know. I don't know how hard it's going to be to replace that. And now it was Matt Corral. That's right.
Matt
Before
Corral.
that.
That's right.
Matt Corral. Yeah. But I think, like you, I think they take a step back this year.
I just got South Carolina, 24/7 Sports final portal rankings.
Oh.
I got to keep them a little quiet.
Okay.
They're for
not yet for public.
Everybody's in the top 300. Nobody's lower than a high 3-star. And yeah, I can't repeat them. I think this could cause the class ranking or at least the score to go up. So yeah, it was Matt Corral, also a player that was from California. So he's had back-to-back guys like himself, California quarterback.
Right.
Lane's a California guy. So we'll see what happens there with Ole Miss. I'm with you. Worse next year. Who's next? Are the Aggies next?
Let's see. I think it is the Aggies. Yeah. No, Oklahoma. Oh, hold on.
I thought we went Oklahoma. We did because I said
no.
that.
I skipped. That was my fault. We went LSU, Alabama, and then skipped Oklahoma and A&M and went straight to Ole Miss. And that was on me because I was looking at somebody else's schedule.
You got Oklahoma. We got Oklahoma in. So yeah,
we didn't hit A&M. We didn't hit A&M.
Didn't hit A&M. A&M's
there. That's it. I knew.
Yeah, because the A&M game's before the Ole Miss game.
Yes, that's right. Yep, that was my fault.
All right, let's get A&M. I think about the same because guess what? They're always the same.
That's right.
They're perpetually between 7 and 9 wins.
Yes,
which is good in the SEC. I mean, but they were in the Big 12 too.
What do you? Yeah,
now that's another one. It absolutely stinks that South Carolina has to go to Texas A&M and LSU next year. Those places are just harder to play. I mean, Kyle Field and Death Valley or whatever they call it, Tiger Stadium.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about two of probably the top 8 toughest places to win. You know, Carolina's never won in College Station, and it's been 31 years since they won in Baton Rouge. It's been 31 years since they've beaten LSU. So, but I'm going to say they're going to be about
great. Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, the Beamer, the great breaker of narratives, is going to turn both of those.
Yeah. Hey, he's
right.
I was looking the other day. There's like 6 times Beamer stopped a streak. It's on the Big Spur Instagram account. But there's been quite a few. So, Coastal Carolina next.
Yeah, I believe we are there. Sorry, Twitter's having a crazy issue. Yes, Coastal. Yeah, win. I don't know. Coastal better than this year, maybe. Probably better.
I think
than
worse.
You think so?
I think Beck he's kind of a lot of times when coaches make a lot of big changes and stuff and all that, because things have not been going well. I thought surely they could have hired somebody better than that. That's a program that Jamie Chadwell made into a fun place to play. It was dynamic. Nothing about the NC State OC screams dynamic to me. I mean, especially now that they've promoted Kurt Roper. I mean, Dave Dorn's had some. No wonder Eli Drinkwitz got out of there and went to App State. I was like, but and you do have to give Dave Dorn credit for Eli. I think anyway. Nevertheless, I think Coastal's going to be worse. This would have been a game that had Chadwell still been there, and they're not been a portal, and things are kind of iffy. You're worried about, but I think Carolina will beat them up pretty good, just like they have every other time they've played the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers. I think they played them twice, beating them 70-10 and 49-15.
Yeah. I don't expect them to put up very much resistance against Carolina. I doubt it.
Yeah.
Good time to have them on the schedule too during transition, and then and the last team on the schedule, we all know who they are. We know them. We love them. We hate
Clemson.
them. Yeah.
A lot of
I say up. Y'all don't want to hear that, but
I think they're going to be better.
I think so.
I do. I think their running back situation is the one at all. You look on offense and go,
Yeah.
where are the running? But they got a kid coming in, Gideon Davidson, who I think is going to be just fine. Their offensive line's as good as it's been in a while. The defensive front's still going to keep going. They have good players on defense. They got a new coordinator. We'll see how he turns out because Tom Allen's not the same guy as Godwin and Venables. And, it will have been 13 years since Clemson's kind of changed. And I wonder if it's going to be the Clemson defense they're running in the same thing.
Is it? Yeah. Oh, yes. As
I don't think
have
Dabo misses medals with defense. The Queen of the Cock says, don't forget Clemson's tight ends. I think they have a young guy they like, but Bering Stool was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like you'd be watching one of their games and all of a sudden it's like 3rd and 11. They had basically run 2 plays, like one up the middle for a 1-yard loss or a 2-yard gain. And then Klubnik gets sacked. And then it's 3rd and 11 and he drops back and in 2 seconds, there's Bering Stool snatching it out of the sky and diving for a first down by an inch.
Yeah. You just knew where the ball was going.
That guy was really, I think he's going to be a pretty good pro too. So you're right. That's a good point about their tight ends, but,
what do you think about these receivers they got, JC?
Love them. I mean, Antonio Williams just has gotten better and better and better. Adam Randall moved to running back. Keep in mind, that was a good move they made. He looked pretty good there. I don't know if that'll continue. You have TJ Moore's good. Bryant Wesco's good. That's why they recruited those guys. They're studs. Brenningstool.
Yeah, Brenningstool. It is, Brenningstool.
I said Bering Stool.
Whatever.
Like the Berenstein Bears.
Not gonna be playing for them this year.
Not gonna be playing for them anymore. But so I'm looking at it and I think this offseason for the first time since Spurrier, because keep in mind during the Spurrier era, even though Carolina was beating Clemson every year, both teams were good.
Yeah.
So go back before that little Spurrier Dabo run in the 2010s, probably the first time since like 87, the 87 offseason that Clemson and South Carolina both, because going into 88, they both were like top 5.
Right.
That both are like, okay, these 2 teams from South Carolina are going to really be good. And that's good for the Gamecocks because you don't have to worry about it till like next Thanksgiving weekend. But I think it, and again, we'll see. Around the league, the Queen of the Cocks mentioned Auburn as being better next year. Well, they should be. They better be for Hugh Freeze's sake. I think Florida's got some momentum. My question is, how good are they going to be? Because that fan base, right? They're all happy with Napier. And he did have some impressive wins, and they do have a special quarterback, and they have recruited well. What happened with those guys is he recruits well, right? Mm-hmm. But he was getting fired, it seemed, and everybody thought that. Well, then when he was not getting fired, they flipped everybody back. So that was kudos to them for doing that.
Yeah.
So they got an infusion of talent.
Mm-hmm.
I think they'll be better. I don't think Arkansas is going to be better. I think Mississippi State will win some next year. They won't go over in the league.
I hope so. Levy was handed a pile of poop and told to win with it, and they just didn't have bodies.
No, and then they had injuries. They had nobody in the secondary.
No,
and they never gave up. They played hard.
Yeah.
Texas. A lot of people have them number 1 next year. I don't necessarily see Georgia taking a step back. Tennessee is going to be pretty interesting to me because they lose their big running back, and they lose some players off their defense. Phil, my question will be, are they going to be able to win games like Heupel used to win? Because last year's Tennessee team was not that they won by playing defense and running the ball.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. Tennessee's an interesting story for next year right now from where I sit.
Would you say Tennessee is the biggest question mark heading into 2025 in the SEC?
As far as the teams that were good this year,
right?
Think,
yeah.
Now, let's not just hand every. I think Georgia's going to be fine. I'm not sitting here, but they lost some players now. I mean, they got some good players coming back, obviously.
Right.
But is Georgia? I don't know. What if Gunnar Stockton gets hurt and they have to go with the other kid?
Who?
Yeah.
Right. They're all in on Stockton.
I love Stockton. I think he's
too,
good.
Man, he was good, yeah.
So Alabama, the Queen of the Cock says, is probably the biggest question mark. I'm trying to think if there's anybody else I didn't mention. I don't think so.
I don't think that we pretty well covered everything.
Texas and everybody. So
yeah.
Hey, I'll leave everybody with this. What if South Carolina had played instead of, because they were playing Alabama anyway, instead of playing Ole Miss and LSU, what if the Gamecocks had played
Auburn and Mississippi State? Oh,
Florida and Tennessee. What if it was the East schedule? So no Oklahoma. There would have been no Oklahoma, no LSU, no Ole Miss. It would have been Florida, Georgia, Tennessee. Depending on when Florida was, like if Florida was where LSU was, and like Georgia was where Oklahoma was, and you throw Tennessee in there where Ole Miss was, I don't know, man. Looking back on it now, heading in, a lot of folks were happy that. Who wants to go?
They weren't. Yeah, they had cycled off the schedule.
But, So. All right. Thanks for listening today here on Inside the Gamecocks the show. I'll be back with some coffee in the morning. I have to decide on a topic, but it'll be a football topic. Thanks for listening to that. Thanks for listening to Inside the Gamecocks the show with me and Phil. Don't forget Inside the Gamecocks the morning show tomorrow morning. Download the Chief Sports app. If you're listening on podcast, be sure to go rate us 5 stars. Write a nice review on the Apple Pods or Google Play. We appreciate each and every one of you for listening. You make it great. You make it so special.
Make it so good.
All right, Phil, get us out of here.
That's right. All right. Inside the Gamecocks, the show. Closing up for a Monday. Hope your week goes great and swimmingly. Tomorrow on the morning show, we got Alex Jones bright and early. There will also be a JC and Morgan tomorrow.
Forgot about that.
That's right. 9 a.m. Eastern with none other than Tom Luganbill. Old Lugs is going to stop in on the traditional National Signing Day and talk some football with the guys. It'll be fun. We look forward to seeing everybody back here in the chat boxes, on the streams, and everywhere else tomorrow. Y'all have a great evening.